Welcome to Story Medicine. I am Joe Summerfield. For over 20 years, I've been working to better understand and support people in navigating this human experience, and I've come to believe that stories are encoded with the collective wisdom of all who have come before us, that they bring us into connection with the collective unconscious and contain treasure waiting to be decoded. This podcast explores traditional tales through that lens. Each episode offers a story told in full, an exploration of the medicine it may carry, and practices to help you integrate that medicine. Today's story comes from Irish mythology, from the Ulster Cycle, Ireland's heroic age tales. It's called the Morrígan and Cú Chulainn. It carries medicine about what we refuse that later claims us anyway, and about our relationship with death and with fate. Let's begin. Part 1. The story. In the time when Ulster was besieged, when Queen Maeve of Connacht led her armies into the north to steal the Great Brown Bull, all the warriors of Ulster fell under an ancient curse, writhing in pain that rendered them utterly helpless, as if giving birth. All of the warriors except one. Cú Chulainn, the young champion of Ulster, was not born in that land, so the curse didn't touch him. At just 17 years old, he stood alone against the advancing army, defending the borders of Ulster through single combat and guerrilla warfare. Day after day he fought, champion after champion fell to his spear. And the Morrigan, the phantom queen, the goddess of war and fate and sovereignty, she watched him. She watched this young warrior with his terrible beauty in battle, his ferocity, his skill, and something stirred in her. Perhaps it was admiration. Perhaps it was desire. Perhaps it was something else entirely, the recognition of what he might become, of what he might offer, if he would accept her. So one day, as Cú Chulainn rested between battles, a woman approached him. She was beautiful beyond measure, dressed in fine clothing, with hair like dark water. She walked towards the young hero, with the kind of confidence that speaks of power, of knowing. "I have watched you," she said. "I've seen how you fight, and I would give you my love. I would stand with you. Together we would be unstoppable." Cú Chulainn looked at her. He was wounded and exhausted from defending Ulster alone against an entire army. And this beautiful woman was offering him alliance, offering him aid, and offering him love. Yet he refused her. "I have no time for a woman's love," he said. "I am fighting a war here. I need neither your help nor your company. Go away." The woman's eyes darkened, and the air itself seemed to shift around her. "You speak to me as if you know who I am," she said quietly, "but you do not. I am the Morrigan. I am war itself, and if you will not accept my help, then know this: I will oppose you in your next battle." And she was gone. Cú Chulainn felt a chill pass through him, but he was proud. He was the great champion of Ulster. What could one goddess do against him? His next combat came soon enough. A powerful warrior named Locke stood on the far side of the ford, waiting to face Ulster's champion in single combat. Cú Chulainn stepped into the cold water with his spear in his hand, and the battle began. They fought with skill and strength, neither of them giving ground. But then, beneath the water, something coiled around Cú Chulainn's ankle. An eel. It wrapped tight and it pulled, dragging him off balance, making him stumble in the current. As he fell, Locke struck, and blood bloomed in the water. Cú Chulainn drove his spear downward, crushing the eel beneath his heel. He felt bones crack under his foot, and then he found his balance again and pressed forward. But the battle was not done with him yet. Suddenly a wolf burst from the tree line, grey and massive, driving a stampede of cattle directly at the ford. The beasts crashed into the water with their hooves churning and their bodies pressing from all sides, and chaos erupted. Cú Chulainn was battered, nearly trampled by the stampede. He seized a stone from the riverbed and hurled it with all of his strength, and it struck the wolf square in the eye. The creature howled and fled, with blood streaming down its face. Cú Chulainn turned back to his opponent. Locke was pressing his advantage and driving hard. But the young champion would not yield. Then came the third attack. A red heifer, large and powerful, burst through the stampede, leading all of the cattle, driving them with an eerie intelligence. The animals surged again, a wall of flesh and panic bearing down on Cú Chulainn. He grabbed his sling and whirled it once, twice, and the stone flew true, striking the heifer's leg. The crack of bone echoed across the water. The animal stumbled, and the stampede faltered. In that moment, bloodied, exhausted, attacked from every angle, Cú Chulainn found his opening. His spear found Locke's heart, and the warrior fell. The battle was won. Cú Chulainn dragged himself from the ford, wounded and weary. He had survived, but only just. Some time later, walking back from the battlefield, he came across an old woman sitting beside a different stream. She was ancient, hunched, dressed in rags, and she sat milking a cow with 3 teats. Her face was haggard, and Cú Chulainn could see she bore 3 wounds, one on her ribs, one on her eye, and one on her leg. "Blessings on you, grandmother," Cú Chulainn said, for he was raised to show respect to the aged. "Might I have a drink? I am weary from the battle." The old woman looked up at him. Something flickered in her one good eye. "Aye," she said, "you may." She filled a wooden cup from the first teat and handed it to him. The milk was cool and sweet, and Cú Chulainn drank deeply. "Blessings on you and the cow," he said. And as he spoke those words, the wound on the woman's ribs closed, the skin knitted whole. She milked from the second teat and gave him another cup, and again he drank. "Blessings on you and the one who gave you this cow," he said. And the wound on her eye healed, the blind socket cleared, and the eye restored. She milked from the third teat, and he drank the last cup. "Blessings on you and all who gave you aid," he said. The wound on her leg vanished. The old woman stood. She was no longer hunched, and in fact she was no longer old. She was the Morrígan. "You said you would not help me if you had known who I was," she said quietly, "and yet you've healed me with your blessings given freely." Cú Chulainn stared at her, understanding washing over him like cold water. The eel, the wolf, the heifer. The wounds he had given each in battle, she carried them away, and he had healed them without knowing. "I would not have helped you in that guise," he said slowly, "but I could not withhold kindness from an old woman asking for nothing but courtesy." The Morrigan looked at him with eyes older than kingdoms. "Remember this," she said. "I offered you alliance. You refused me. I opposed you and you wounded me. And now you have served me without meaning to, blessed me without knowing who received your blessing." And she left him standing there. Years later, as Cú Chulainn prepared for what would be his final battle, he saw her one last time. She was at a stream, washing bloody armour and weapons in the water. His armour, his weapons. She was washing them clean before he had even fought the battle that would stain them with his blood. It was a prophecy, an omen of death. And when he died, bound to a stone pillar, standing even in death, refusing to fall before his enemies, a crow landed on his shoulder. Just a crow. Black wings, dark eyes. But everyone knew, everyone understood. The Morrigan had come to claim her own. Part 2. The Medicine. Let's explore the medicine that this story may be offering us. Before we go deeper, if you know somebody who might appreciate this story's medicine right now, please share this episode with them. And if you're enjoying the podcast and would like to help others find it too, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Thank you. So, there are two main figures in this tale. Cú Chulainn is 17 years old. He's a young man and an outsider who finds himself sole defender of Ulster, not because he chose this role, but because all the other warriors have fallen under a curse that leaves them helpless. At 17, he's at a threshold. He carries responsibility for those around him. So perhaps this series of wars is a rite of passage of some kind for him. And the Morrigan is the Phantom Queen, the goddess of war, of death, of fate, of sovereignty. She's associated with crows and ravens, with prophecy, and with the land itself. She determines who rules and who falls. She is immensely powerful. She's not evil, she's necessary. She is the fierce power that protects the land and its people, and she's also the death that comes for everybody eventually. Given his position, you would think that a powerful force appearing and offering alliance, offering help, might be welcomed. But instead he refuses her. He tells her, "I have no time for a woman's love. I'm fighting a war here. I neither need your help nor your company." And he tells her to go away. Here, I think, is the first teaching of the story. Archetypes can express themselves in different forms. With any archetype, there is the mature, or the secure, or the integrated expression. And there is also the immature, or the insecure, or the unintegrated, or the shadow expression. With Cú Chulainn at this threshold moment in his life, he is charged with masculine energy, and more specifically, the warrior archetype. As I speak about this, please remember that these energies exist within all of us. So this medicine is applicable for both male and female listeners. So this masculine energy, including the warrior archetype, in its immature form, carries the belief that strength means self-sufficiency, that purpose means single-mindedness, that maturity means needing no one, that opening to another, especially from a feminine force, the force of chaos or opportunity, would only diminish him or cost him something essential, his time or his focus. But the Morrigan isn't just any goddess. The Morrigan is a sovereignty goddess, meaning she embodies the land, and she determines who has the right to rule and who has the right to defend the territory, and who the land accepts. And, of course, she is war itself. So she's literally offering him alliance with the very forces that he's immersed in. It's as if somebody who's drowning said, "I don't need your help," to the water itself. She's offering him conscious relationship with what he's doing. But at 17, defending alone in immature form, he can't see that. He only sees, "I don't have time for this," and so he turns her away. And in doing so, despite it being the opposite of his intended outcome, he seals his fate with her. That relationship needed to exist, and in the absence of his active participation, its forms become hidden to him. The animals, the old lady. He had no idea what he was interacting with from the moment he rejected the Morrigan. This seems to me to be a message about the perils of carrying the immature masculine principle, and that welcoming alliance, especially with the dark, the fierce, the feminine power, inviting chaos and possibility, is a necessary part of passing through that threshold. The next battle comes. Cú Chulainn faces the warrior Loch at the ford, and the interventions begin. The manifestations of the feminine that he rejected are now in hidden or disguised form. First, an eel wraps around his ankle underwater and pulls him off balance, dragging him down. Coming from the depths of the water, perhaps this eel is symbolic of the influence of the subconscious. Then the wolf is driving what should be under human control into panic, the herd. This is wilderness disrupting domestication or order, highlighting the fragility of the illusion of control. Perhaps symbolic of the instinctual predatory force that reveals how thin our mastery actually is. And then there's the red heifer, a young female cow, with red perhaps signifying life force and sacrifice. And please notice here that she is not being driven by the wolf. She's leading. Not as the wolf through fear, but with some other quality that draws the herd with her, rather than driving them from her. What he thought was docile and manageable, this heifer, the feminine as passive and controlled, reveals itself as having its own power and direction. This is feminine as leader. 3 forms, 3 attacks, and in each form he wounds her. Cú Chulainn wins the battle, but you and I know it's not the end of the story. Sometime after the battle, Cú Chulainn encounters an old woman milking a cow. She's wounded, injury to her ribs, to her eye, and to her leg. The same 3 wounds that he inflicted during the battle. The old woman offers him milk, and he accepts 3 times, each time blessing her. Each time he does this, the old lady heals and then transforms into the Morrigan. This is profound. He rejected her alliance when she appeared as powerful feminine. Then he accepts milk, which surely represents feminine nourishment, when she appears as a wounded, helpless crone. So he will take the feminine when it appears non-threatening, but he doesn't accept it when it comes with power, which is a must. But again, the feminine has appeared in hidden form since he rejected it, and now that he drinks the milk, he unknowingly heals the goddess that he's wounded. It's not that the milk seals his fate, it's that his willingness to receive only from the incapacitated feminine, whilst refusing the powerful feminine, reveals the pattern. He serves her either way. He receives from her either way. But he'll only do it consciously when she appears unthreatening. He couldn't see her nourishment when she offered alliance as an equal. So she tells him, "You said you would not help me if you had known who I was, and yet you have healed me with your own blessings freely given." Perhaps the medicine here is not only around the alchemy of the feminine and masculine, but more generally that we serve what we refuse anyway. We simply serve it unconsciously instead of consciously, without awareness, without choice, without the power that comes from knowing what we're doing. When we refuse relationship with certain forces, with death, with our own capacities, with chaos, with potency, we don't actually escape those forces. We simply encounter them unconsciously instead of consciously. We end up serving them anyway, but we serve them without knowing what we're doing, without choice, without the dignity and the power and the direction that comes from conscious relationship. Think about it in your own life. The interdependence that you refuse to accept doesn't disappear. It shows up as resentment when you need help, or as isolation when you're surrounded by people, or as the exhausting weight of believing that you must carry everything alone. The anger that you refuse to acknowledge doesn't disappear. It leaks out as sarcasm or cynicism or passive aggression, as jokes that wound. The grief that you won't let yourself feel doesn't vanish. It shows up as numbness or exhaustion or as flatness in your emotional life. You're in relationship with that grief, whether you acknowledge it or not. The reality of your own mortality when you refuse to face it, to make conscious relationship with the fact that you will die, doesn't mean that death forgets about you. You simply live unconsciously in its shadow rather than consciously in its presence. And then comes the final teaching. Years later, Cú Chulainn sees the Morrigan one last time. She's at the stream, washing bloody armour and weapons in the water. His armour, his weapons, washing them before he's even fought the battle that will bloody them and mark his death. There are 2 important aspects to this: archetype and prophecy. The washer at the ford is a death omen figure in Celtic tradition, Ben Nia, a woman seen washing blood-stained clothes or armour by a stream, foretelling the death of the person whose garments she's washing. This archetypal figure performs the liminal feminine work of preparing for death. She washes the grave clothes of those fated to die, marking the threshold between life and death through this ritual of tending, of performing the sacred work around death. Yet again, Cú Chulainn is unwittingly receiving the feminine medicine that he rejected. And she knows full well what awaits him. This is prophecy. This is the goddess in her role as the one who knows, who sees fate. When he finally falls in battle, wounded mortally, binding himself to a stone pillar so that he can die standing rather than falling before his enemies, a crow lands on his shoulder. Black wings settling on the dying hero. The Morrigan is a shapeshifter. This isn't punishment, it's her role as death. She is the force that claims everyone eventually, whether they've made conscious relationship with her or not. The medicine that this story offers is perhaps, you can refuse these forces whilst you live. You can say, I don't need you, I'm handling everything alone. But they don't disappear. They simply stop offering alliance and start opposing you instead. They attack from beneath, from chaos, from the familiar turned dangerous. You wound them in battle, but then you heal them in kindness without knowing. You serve them unconsciously, whilst believing that you've refused them. And in the end, they claim you anyway. The goddess knows your fate, whether you acknowledge her or not. Death comes whether you've made peace with it or not. But there is a possibility, whilst you live, whilst you breathe, of conscious relationship rather than unconscious service, of alliance rather than opposition, of knowing the forces that you're swimming in rather than pretending that they don't exist. The Morrigan perhaps offers this. Not because she needs our acknowledgement to have power, she has power regardless, but because unconscious relationship with the land, with war, with death, with fate, with the feminine, with the fierce protective destroyer that lives in the depths, this is available to us. We can refuse it, like Cú Chulainn, and then we'll serve it anyway, unconsciously, without choice or dignity or power or intention. Or we can accept the alliance that's offered, make conscious relationship with those necessary forces, know what we're serving, know who we're blessing, know what's coming for us in the end. The young hero, the immature masculine, believed that his strength was sufficient. He refused what was offered, and he spent his life serving what he'd refused, until the day the crow landed on his shoulder and everybody knew. The one he had rejected had always known his fate, had always been washing his grave clothes, had always been waiting to claim what was already hers. Part 3. Integration Practices. The medicine doesn't come from understanding these patterns intellectually. It comes from the practices, from allowing the transformation to happen in your body, in your honest acknowledgement of where you are. Here are 3 practices to help you integrate this story's medicine. First practice, defending Ulster alone. Cú Chulainn believed that he had to carry everything through his own strength and will. He refused alliance because he thought that it would weaken him or distract him. Take 20 minutes this week with a pen and paper and write down one specific area where you are defending Ulster alone, where you're carrying everything by yourself, refusing help, believing that you must handle it through strength and willpower alone. And then write, if I accepted alliance here, what would I be letting in? What chaos? What uncertainty, what loss of control could I be opening up to? And then be honest. What scares you about accepting help in this area? What do you believe it would cost you? What would you have to surrender? The immature masculine believes that self-sufficiency is strength. The mature masculine knows that alliance makes you more powerful. Write about the difference that you feel between these two. Second practice, meeting the 3 forms. The Morrigan appeared in 3 forms when Cú Chulainn rejected her. The eel pulling from the depths, the wolf bringing wildness, and the heifer leading with sovereign power. These are three aspects of the feminine: subconscious depths, instinctual wildness, and sovereign leadership. For this practice, choose which of these three you've most exiled or refused in yourself. The eel, the depths, the subconscious. What pulls you down into feeling and intuition and the unknown beneath the surface? The wolf, wildness, instinct, the predatory force that disrupts control and reveals how thin mastery actually is. The heifer, sovereign feminine power, the force that leads rather than follows, the force that draws rather than drives, that has its own direction. Spend 15 minutes with the one that you've most refused or feel least comfortable with. Close your eyes and ask, what does this energy feel like in my body? Where does it live? What does it want? What would it be like to accept alliance with this force instead of wounding whenever it appears? And write down what emerges. Don't try to control or to fix it, just meet it. Third practice, speaking to the washerwoman at the ford. The Morrigan appears at the stream, washing Cú Chulainn's armour before his final battle. She knows that death is coming. She is death itself, and she knows that you're ending too, whether you've made conscious relationship with her or not. For this practice, imagine that the Morrigan is washing your armour right now. She knows that your death is coming, not today, not tomorrow, but it's coming. She's preparing your grave clothes whilst you still live. Take 30 minutes to write to her. What do you need to say to death before the claiming? What alliance have you been refusing? What would conscious relationship with your own mortality make possible now for you in your life, for those around you, whilst you still have breath? Don't write about death in abstract. Write to her directly. Morrigan, I see you washing my armour. What becomes available when you stop refusing the one who will claim you in the end? The medicine in this story is fierce. The young hero believed that his strength was sufficient and refused what was offered. We can choose differently. We can accept the alliance that's available with the depths, with the wildness, with the sovereign power, with death itself, whilst we still live. We can choose conscious relationship rather than unconscious service, alliance rather than opposition, knowing what we're swimming in rather than pretending that we're swimming alone. The wisdom in these old stories waits patiently. I hope that this one's medicine found you where you need it. Thank you for listening to Story Medicine. I am Joe Summerfield. Until next time.